What's up, everybody? My name is Matt. I am a 5-year cancer survivor, and that's really cool because I was only supposed to be here 5 years, and I'm feeling really, really good. In fact, better than ever. Today is my 41st birthday. So, dude, I've been on the planet for more than 40 years. That feels like a really big deal to me, and I'm stoked about it. I got an early birthday present that I didn't expect, and that was a call from my doctor letting me know that I have cancer again. Yeah, my brain tumor is active and growing, and so much so that it kicked me out of my clinical trial, which doesn't sound good, but it actually is good news, and I will tell you why. Watch this. So, quick review for those of you just joining me or just finding our story, or those who love me and have been hanging out the whole time. When I was 35, I started experiencing really random depression and really overwhelming, and I was having these panic attacks. They kept increasing till I was getting 10 multiple level 10 panic attacks a day. They were really, really intense, really intense. I thought I was dying, and it was just really scary. And I'd go see doctors, and they'd be like, oh, look at this chart. You're 35, and when you turn 35, you often get stressed and have depression. So lose some weight, take these pills, you'll be fine. And I was doing all of that. I was seeing counselors, I was doing yoga, I was doing everything that I could to just try to beat what I thought was normal, but it didn't feel normal. And I kept saying that, I kept saying that. I had, at the time, 5 kids, including 2 foster kids, just about to be adopted, about a month away, and my wife was 8 months pregnant, and I woke up on the floor. My kids were around my head praying for me when I woke up, and my wife had been on a run, and it turned out I had had a grand mal seizure. I didn't know that. I just thought I fainted. My wife came home. I went to the doctor, and they did a CT scan and found a mass on my brain. And the doctor was like, have you been experiencing da 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 da? And he listed every experience I'd had in a panic attack. And I was just like, yes, that's what I keep saying to everybody. And it turned out, he's like, well, you have a brain tumor. It's on your fight or flight reflex, so it's causing all of these, I'm dying, and all of these things are going on, and it's also part of your emotional processing center, so that's why your emotions are all over the place. That explained a lot, and I was actually really excited. I called my wife and was like, guess what, babe? There's a mass on my brain, which is not what you should say to your wife, but after a seizure, you're kind of confused and not thinking straight, so I just signed right up. Yeah, dude, give me a craniotomy. And so they put me in for brain surgery. I had a craniotomy, which I later found out is a lobectomy, because they said, that just looked clear, we'll just take it out. Turns out it's a diffuse astrocytoma, which means it's not just like a little ball in your brain, it's like a mushy mess. So there's little fingers that go out to all the cells, and it infects all the cells. So where the tumor is was my brain. And so I essentially had a lobectomy. They just scooped out parts of me that I'll never get back. And I woke up not the same at all. And again, my wife was 8 months pregnant. So in a month, we had a baby and finished the adoption of our 2 children. And we went from a family of 3 to a family of 6 kids all at once. And that was a lot to go on while fighting brain cancer and learning that it wasn't what we expected at all. I didn't just get better like they said. In fact, I had severe brain damage. It's kind of like everything they read on there, you could experience the warnings, I had all of them. So I had no memory at all. I had no problem-solving ability. All these areas of my brain that were affected, I couldn't remember anything. I would just speak in loops. It was like I had really extreme dementia, and I was terrified of everything. All my senses were just so heightened. If there was a noise, I would just dive under the table or scream and run away, and I lost a lot of dexterity because it was on my right side, so my left side was clumsy. I would drop things, and I was just terrified all the time. It was on my fight or flight reflex, and that was damaged. So any noises, I would completely freak out. I lived my whole life in headphones. I really couldn't leave the house much until I kind of got a mobility scooter and could have a little safe spot and wander around. It felt like the movie Big, where I was this little 6-year-old scared version of myself in this adult body, and just kind of freaked out by all the grown-ups. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. Yeah, my kids just, Daddy fell on the floor. He woke up and he wasn't the same person. It was rough. It really was. But God was, has, and continues to be good to us, and we've seen a lot of good progress over the last 4 years. A lot. And it was slow going, and it involved a lot of miracles, and especially one really big one right at the 4-year mark, where all of a sudden I could, really all of a sudden, I went to church and I prayed a prayer, and I came home and I ate dinner with the family for the first time in over 4 years. It was incredible. The next day the kids were like, it's like Daddy's back. There were still a number of issues that I had to work through. It was I got healed, and I started healing in a very dramatic way, at a very specific point in time. after a very specific prayer. So I can tell that story another time, but things got better. I could eat with the family. I started being able to read again. I even started to be around some PTSD triggers that had happened as a result of where and how I had my surgery and the stress that I was under. So life was improving in a real big way. And then when you look at the medical, we were watching this thing. It's a low-grade glioma, which means it's like slow growing and super deadly. It was inoperable because they said they couldn't go back in and get the rest of it. We were monitoring it with MRIs and getting regular scans and watching it. And we were in this kind of watch and wait program where we're watching it and seeing if it grows, because if it grows, we're gonna have to do chemo, radiation, stuff like that. And it was slowly growing. Like each MRI kind of appeared stable, but if you looked over time, it was growing. And then it looked like, it wasn't just like you looked over a year, it was like if you looked over 6 months, and then it kind of 3. And my doctor was like, yeah, so your brain tumor is growing. It's showed up on a couple MRIs. It'd been stable for like, 5 years, 4, and then it started growing. And my seizures, I still have them every day. I don't have the ones where I fall on the floor or anything like that, but the ones that we thought were panic attacks, those are in fact focal seizures. So it's if my brain like just freaking out in a certain spot, a tumor pushing on that, and me having a fight or flight reflex or senses going off. So I'll hear everything weird, and that just, everything sounds weird and scary, like that dog was barking. It feel real ominous. I get this sense of like doom, they call it. And this sense of deja vu, but it's like terror deja vu. So think Final Destination, where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm dying right now in slow motion. Or like if you were, I don't know, like drowning and just being held underwater and you couldn't get up. It's that feeling. I hope you haven't had that feeling, but yeah, that just takes over me in the middle of whatever. Talking to you guys, and I can push through it. A lot of times I'll just like stop, close my eyes. Sometimes I'll stop and say like, hey, can you hold my hand? Even to some really nice strangers who've done that. So thank you if you're one of them. But that's been really difficult, and I've been living with that for a long time, and they had been increasing, and the doctor's like, look, it's growing and we need to talk next steps, which is always what you want to hear your doctor say, right? No, not at all. But actually his next step was really good. He's like, great news. I have a clinical trial that just showed up, and it's for you. You have cancer and you have what's called the IDH1 genetic mutation. Everybody with cancer has a genetic mutation, specific kind of mutation that causes cancer to get into your body. And so I have the IDH1 mutation, and we have a new clinical trial for people who have the IDH1 mutation and brain cancer. I guess they've had this trial for people who have leukemia and the IDH1 mutation, and they've actually got it as an approved drug because it significantly extends the time between surgery and radiation chemo. And that's great. That's really great, because radiation and chemo, you kind of get one shot with it. That's it. So if I can keep that grenade on the belt, keep that pin in that grenade, the longer the better. Plus there's a lot of side effects, not just while you're going through treatment, but after when you do it to the brain. So we don't want to do that as long as possible. I'd really rather never do it, but I'm down to do whatever it takes to be here for my family. This one was very promising. It's in phase 2, so they'd already identified some of the risks and some of the benefits, and they were hoping that it would decrease seizures and that it would, potentially even shrink the tumor, but certainly stop it from growing. And so I've been in that study for a full year now, and I'm logging how many seizures I'm having every day. They're called focal seizures. That just means that like my senses are going off. I'm not going to flip-flop on the floor like a fish like I did before, but essentially I'll have what I thought were panic attacks. So fight or flight reflex just going off like crazy, deja vu, but like deja terror with sounds and smells that aren't there and that kind of thing. And those happen between 2 and like 11 times a day, and I rate what their level is from kind of a 1 to 10 scale, but sometimes I have to write down like 13. It's just so intense. They happen more during certain triggers, etc. But I've been in this clinical trial, and we do MRIs and cognitive testing, blood work for like labs, and they observe me take the medicine. I get EKGs and all these different things. I go in for those regularly, and then I also get MRIs on a real regular schedule. It's real rigid because it's a study, so they're doing everybody the same, and it's a double-blind study. So I don't know if I'm getting the medicine. The doctor doesn't know if I'm getting the medicine. It's called the Indigo trial. It's like AG whatever. I'll put that on the screen. But we don't know what's going on, but we're measuring, and we're real hopeful. Like real hopeful. This sounds amazing, and I'm stoked. And we've been getting stable MRIs, more or less, so just growing slowly. And then 2 MRIs ago, we saw like a dramatic growth. Dramatic growth. Like scary. And so the way it works is the study's looking for, if you get to 20% growth, then they open the envelope and tell you if you're on the drug or not, if it's working or not, and all this and that. And so I was concerned. We were all very concerned about that. But we're also like, well, maybe it's just a bad picture, because it's not a perfect thing. I mean, you can be not in the MRI the exact same way you were the last time, and so the pictures don't compare. And so I had my last MRI just like 2 weeks ago, and I was waiting on the results from that, and that's when I got the call from my doctor this week. This was the kind of call you really don't want to get from your doctor. I actually thought they would call me in for this and tell me, because we had made an appointment. Like, let's make an appointment so that if it's grown again, we know what to do, and if it hasn't, we can cancel the appointment. So because they called, I was hoping he was going to say, hey, you don't have to come in. But instead, it was like, yeah, the tumor has progressed. The study people have evaluated it, and there's clear progression here, so it's back. And that's not good, because like tumors can remain dormant, but once they get activated, the way tumors grow is cells just reproduce. So it's like doubling. It's that exponential growth that you want to see in your stock portfolio. You do not want to see it in your MRI. So that's not good, and you need to come in. And the good news is, and I thought we would come in and it was going to be like a game show, like we'd open an envelope and find out if I was on the placebo or on the drug, but they had already opened it. I was like, you guys spoiled my birthday present. And so they had opened it, and it turned out I was on the placebo, which is awesome, because essentially the benefits that I wasn't seeing are potentially still there for me, and I'm allowed to now move on to the drug. And so yesterday I signed up to do that, and here's what the doctor said. I was really excited to hear that, and this is the really good news about this. I was like, okay, well, now we've been in the study so long, I've been in it for a year, and you've got all these people that are, I know you don't know who's on the placebo and who's not, but have you seen in any of the patients, have you seen any benefits of them being on the drug? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. We've actually seen some tumors shrink. Like, he just went to that all confident. I was like, what? Because you hear about tumor shrinking when you have cancer, you get all of the new wives' tales from everybody, and everybody knows somebody whose tumor just disappeared because they smoked enough weed, or they drank alkaline water. There's like a million different new wives' tales out there. And I've never actually met anybody whose tumor shrunk or disappeared, really, and it was really cool. He's like, yeah, it's like your tumor, the way it slowly grows, we'll see it slowly shrink. Or we look at it over time, that is definitely smaller. But the benefit that you can look forward to potentially right away is decreased seizures. And I was just like, dude, that would change my quality of life so much, so much. There's a neurological tie between what I was doing and the stress that I was under, while all the doctors were saying it's stress, and then that stress is ultimately, like, in a big moment was what led to my seizures. So I have a very neurological PTSD response where my body tries to protect me from that, or anything that feels even like that. And so regularly I will just get triggered and have these focal seizures. I have to keep my world very small to avoid them, and they're dangerous in the sense that, like, I'm not going to drive off the road or fall on the ground or anything like that. I stay, able to life, but it's not good. You don't want seizures. They create more seizures, and eventually that's a real problem. So that would be so awesome, because I'd be able to do more life and all these different things. So now we're entering a totally new season. I'm excited. We're closing the chapter of Matt is on the placebo, and we are opening the chapter of Matt is on a clinical trial drug that has shown good results. And we're actually now in phase 3 of the clinical trial, so it could be in phase 3 for years while it gets approved by the FDA. But it's exciting stuff. So yesterday I closed that chapter with one giant doctor's appointment where we did like all the tests we've ever done, but in one appointment. So the EKG, the labs, the cognitive testing, all that stuff. But the good news is that as we open this next chapter and go into Matt's on the clinical trial drug, it's the exact same process. And last year it was real difficult to navigate because COVID started and I was starting all these new things. Christy couldn't be with me and I had to like work through it. I remember the first appointment we did the cognitive testing, which is just like memory tests and all these things, and I fell asleep on the bed like while they stepped out of the room, so that was no good. The good news is that I know exactly what to expect. It's the same exact thing. It's like the first appointment you do this, the second appointment you do that, the third appointment you do this, and they're spaced like this, they're spaced like that, and I've done them all before, so it's like I had practice, and now I'm going to do it even better, which is awesome. And I'm excited about the whole thing. I expect that we're going to see my MRI stabilize immediately, that we're going to see my seizures decrease. Like, what? That's so amazing. Seriously, if life wasn't triggering those all the time, man, it would just be so awesome for all of us. So that'd be great, because I've learned to life even with those in a really big way. And man, if I didn't have them, that would just be amazing. And so we're very excited. I hope that you are very excited. I'm stoked, dude. I am 41 today. Like, what? I made it. That's amazing. That's so cool. God has been good to give me 41 years on this planet with my 6 beautiful kids and my wife, and I expect to get even more. I'm going to work really hard for that. I'm going to pray really hard for that. I hope that you guys will as well. And thank you for caring about me and my journey and where we're going. I will continue to try to keep you guys updated, but just for now, know that I love you and stay stoked.